At the stroke of midnight, I witnessed a gruesome body disposal from my balcony. Paralyzed with terror, I collapsed to the ground, accidentally knocking over a nearby flower pot. The killer's head snapped up, his pale ghostly face scanning the building as he began to count 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. At 2, his neck twisted unnervingly, and dragging a blood-soaked sledgehammer, he marched straight toward my apartment entrance. I frantically clamped my hand over my mouth, as a 7-year-old consumed by absolute dread, just as a scream was about to tear from my throat. A pair of hands lunged from behind and muffled my face. "Xiaorui, don't make a sound." My sister gestured for silence with a sharp shh, creeping forward to double-lock the security door. She desperately tried calling my brother-in-law a detective, but the line wouldn't connect. With no choice left, she frantically dialed the local emergency hotline. "Hello? Are you there? Please answer. This is Building 2, Unit 202, Guangming Road, Textile Dorms. My brother and I just saw someone commit a murder downstairs. The killer spotted us and is coming." The dispatcher urged my sister to remain calm, promising that a patrol car would arrive within 5 minutes. My sister forced herself to keep a level head, dragging the heavy dining table to barricade the door. Clutching a pair of sharp tailor's shears in one hand, she pulled me tightly behind her with the other. "Xiaorui, don't be scared. Sister is here. Once the police and your brother-in-law arrive, we'll finally be safe." She told me not to be afraid. Yet her entire body was trembling uncontrollably. The door handle began to turn and rattle with violent force. My sister tried calling her husband once more, but was met only by a soul-crushing busy signal. Outside the door, the killer seemed to snap, losing every last shred of patience. A dull, heavy boom echoed through the room, as the security door and its frame were mangled by a single blow. Everything blurred into a chaotic flash. A beast-like silhouette suddenly burst through the wreckage. He kicked the heavy table aside like it was nothing, sending my sister flying with a brutal kick. He swung the heavy hammer and began his savage assault. My sister lay motionless in a pool of expanding crimson. Then he turned his predatory gaze toward me. In that heartbeat, my unconscious sister let out a primal roar and forced her eyes open, unleashing an incredible burst of desperate strength. She lunged forward, plunging the tailor's shears deep into the madman's thigh. "Xiaorui, run!" the killer howled in a primal rage, violently slamming the hammer into my sister's back. 1 strike, 2, 3. Yet she clung to the beast's leg with a death grip, refusing to let go even as her life faded away. The commotion finally jolted the neighbors awake, and sirens began to wail from the distant street corners. The killer ripped out the shears and vanished through the window, starting a fugitive run that would last a decade. I survived that hellish night, but the price was a permanent life-altering disability. After we were rushed to the emergency room, my brother-in-law finally arrived after his mission. The moment he saw her in the morgue, his knees hit the floor, paralyzed by a grief too deep for even a single sob. As I was wheeled out of the operating theater, peering through the blood-soaked bandages, I asked him, knowing he was on the brink of collapse, "Why didn't you pick up her call, brother-in-law? If you had answered, would she still be alive?" I didn't realize it then, but my desperate words were like a lethal poison, trapping my brother-in-law forever in the echoes of that blood-stained rainy night. His hair turned white overnight, and he spent endless hours kneeling before her portrait, viciously slapping his own face in self-loathing. "Why didn't you pick up?" Why was the line silent? The day I was finally discharged, he finally made a life-changing decision. The very first thing he did was resign from the police force he once took so much pride in. He bought a battered, rusted-out Wuling van with the now disabled me seated in the passenger side. He drained his pension and every cent of our savings, printing thousands of sketches of the murderer's face. Setting a bounty for any lead, he drove across 20 different provinces, scouring over 300 remote mountain villages, abandoned mines, and lawless urban slums. A relentless manhunt that spanned 10 grueling years. I lived those 10 years right there in that passenger seat. But during that final pursuit, on August 15th, 2021, the man who claimed to have finally cornered the killer was found in a derelict building, stabbed over a dozen times. And he never made it out alive. But at the exact moment he breathed his last, I was reborn. Sent back in time to the moments before my sister's murder. I snapped my eyes open, to find myself standing on the balcony, my hand still resting on that fatal flower pot. Below that monster was tilting his head, counting the floors. 6, 5, 4, 3. My sister's gruesome death flashed through my mind. Those 5 minutes of pure, unadulterated despair. This time I will ensure my sister survives. I spun around violently, clamping my hand over my own mouth before I could scream. Then I lunged forward and grabbed my sister in a tight embrace. She froze in confusion. "Xiaorui, what's wrong?" I shook my head frantically, hissing in a low, trembling voice, "Sis, lock the door and hide now." Under the bedroom bed my sister was startled by my intensity. "What, Xiaorui? What are you talking about?" I didn't have a second to waste on explanations. I dragged her toward the bedroom with everything I had. She tried to resist, but I gripped her hand like a vice. "Sis, you have to trust me. Locking the door is useless. He'll just smash it down. We have to disappear." Seeing the raw terror etched into my eyes, She hesitated for a heartbeat, before finally following me as we scrambled under the bed. We held our breath, listening to those heavy rhythmic footsteps echoing up the stairs. The thudding footsteps stopped right outside our door. The handle was twisted with brute force, and since it wasn't double-locked, the door swung open easily. The killer stepped inside the house. Peering through the narrow gap beneath the bed, I saw his boots caked in fresh wet blood. He paced through the living room, hunting for us like a predator scenting its prey. I nearly crushed my own face covering my mouth, while my sister remained deathly still. Time seemed to grind to a terrifying halt. I could hear my own pulse thundering in my ears. And right then, my elbow accidentally brushed against a toy car hidden under the bed. Beep, beep, beep. The toy car let out a piercingly loud digital chirp. The killer's footsteps instantly pivoted toward the bedroom. My sister and I locked eyes in the suffocating darkness. In that fleeting second, I saw the absolute terror in her eyes. The mattress was violently flipped over, and that ghostly pale face loomed directly over us. As the hammer swung high this time, our deaths were instantaneous. My eyes snapped open once more, and I was back on that cursed balcony. My hand was still resting on the flower pot. The man below looked up 6543, my second rebirth. I took a sharp, ragged breath. I can't hide this time. Staying inside this house is just waiting for the executioner. I grabbed my sister's hand with desperate force. Sis, follow me to the third floor. She was jolted by my sudden aggression. Xiaorui, have you lost it? There's a literal murderer downstairs. I dragged her toward the exit with every ounce of my strength. We're going to Big Brother Wang on the third floor. He's the only one who can protect us. My sister hesitated for a split second, but eventually she bolted out the front door with me. We scrambled up the concrete stairs as fast as our legs could carry us. Heavy metallic thuds echoed from below. The killer had already breached the stairwell. I pounded on the third floor security door like a madman. Brother Wang! Brother Wang, help us, save us. Someone was murdered downstairs. He's coming for us next. A suspicious, groggy voice drifted from behind the door. Who is it? In the middle of the night, it's Xiaorui from the second floor. Please open the door. There's a psycho with a hammer chasing us. The door creaked open just a sliver, revealing Brother Wang's scarred and intimidating face. He glanced past us at the seemingly empty stairs. He scowled at me. Quit playing games, you little brat. What kind of killer are you talking about? The words had barely left his mouth when heavy rhythmic thuds resounded from the stairwell corner. The killer emerged, dragging his blood-slicked sledgehammer. His ghastly white face was splattered with fresh gore. His hollow eyes fixated entirely on us. Wang's face went pale. He lunged to slam the door. I gripped the doorframe with a death grip. Brother Wang, please don't leave us out here. Wang shoved me away with a violent curse. Get lost. Don't drag me into this. Bam! The door slammed shut. I heard the heavy deadbolt slide into place from the inside. My sister and I clawed at the door panel in sheer despair. The executioner had already reached the top of the landing. My sister instinctively pulled me behind her. She tremblingly raised the small fruit knife brought from home. The predator hoisted his heavy sledgehammer high. Just then, the cell phone clipped to his waist erupted. He froze, answering the call with a gruff, "Yeah. Is the job finished yet?" A man's voice echoed from the other end of the line. There are still 2 witnesses left. The killer's voice was a raspy growl. Make it fast. I've already handled things at the dispatch center. They'll intentionally delay the emergency response. But you only have 10 minutes left, Max. Hearing those words, my mind exploded. There was a mole in the dispatch center. No wonder the police took an eternity to arrive. After my sister called someone was sabotaging the clock, the killer terminated the call and raised his hammer for the kill once more. My sister lunged forward in a desperate suicide charge, only to be crushed to the floor by a single blow. I tried to flee, but my legs had turned to jelly. I could only watch in horror as the iron hammer descended. Before my consciousness flickered out, I engraved that one sentence into my very soul. There is a mole in the dispatch center. Calling the police was a death trap. I opened my eyes for the 3rd time. The same balcony. The same flower pot. The man below began his count 6543. This time, I knew exactly what had to be done. I dragged my sister into the living room, bolting straight for the electrical breaker box. My sister shrieked, "Xiaorui, what are you doing?" I violently yanked down the main switch. The entire building was instantly plunged into a void. We're hiding in the stairwell. Don't make a sound. I pulled my sister along, tucking us into the dark corner between the 2nd and 3rd floors. The killer's heavy footsteps echoed through the darkness, but he was blind to our location. He could only grope around aimlessly in the hallway. Minutes ticked by like hours. Finally, the wail of sirens drifted from the distance. Hearing the sound, the killer let out a feral curse, pivoting to vanish through the fire escape. My sister and I collapsed onto the floor, shaking from the sheer adrenaline of survival. Soon, a flashlight beam sliced through the gloom. A young patrolman in uniform ascended the stairs. "Are you two all right?" My sister sobbed out, "Officer, please." The killer escaped through the fire passage. "Hurry, you have to go after him." The patrolman gave a slow, ominous nod as he stepped directly in front of us. Suddenly, he drew his service pistol and aimed it at my sister's head. My sister collapsed instantly into a pool of gore. I stared at the officer in absolute paralyzing horror as he pivoted the cold barrel to point at my face. Seeing things you shouldn't, he muttered, means you have to die. Before the shot rang out, I glimpsed the name on his badge. This patrolman, the very first responder sent by the dispatch center, he was the traitor. I opened my eyes for the fourth time. The monster below was back to his counting ritual. My hands were trembling violently, but it wasn't out of fear this time. It was out of pure unadulterated rage. 3 agonizing deaths had made one thing crystal clear to me. All outside help had been completely severed. The dispatch center had a mole, and the responding officers were nothing but accomplices. Calling for help was just choosing how to die. I have to stay within the walls of this building and use my own strength to slaughter that murderer. My sister sensed the sudden change in my aura. Xiaorui, what's wrong? I turned to her. Sis, if I told you I know exactly what's about to happen, would you actually believe me? She froze in confusion. What do you mean? I took a sharp breath. There's no time to explain, sis. Listen to me. Go to the kitchen and grab the meat cleavers. The heavier, the better. Then take every drop of cooking oil we have and drench the doorway and the stairs with it. Move now. My sister was visibly shaken by my tone. Xiaorui, what has gotten into you? I gripped her hand with a white-knuckled intensity. Sis, please just trust me this. Once, don't call the police. There's a traitor among them who will kill us to bury the truth. We are the only ones who can save ourselves. My sister looked deep into my eyes, witnessing a level of despair and madness that no 7-year-old child should ever possess. She gave a trembling nod. Okay. We lunged into action immediately. My sister raided the kitchen for the heaviest cleavers, along with 2 large bottles of cooking oil, while I hauled every blunt object I could find in the living room toward the front door, vases, heavy iron candle holders, and even the rusty pliers my father left behind. My sister began drenching the entryway floor in oil. It's not enough, sis, pour some on the stairs too. The more the better. She clutched the oil bottle and lunged out the door, splattering the liquid all over the steps. Just in that heartbeat, the killer had already reached the 2nd floor. His eyes locked onto my sister. Terrified, her hands shook violently, sending the oil bottle crashing to the floor. The liquid slicked across the entire landing. She spun around to flee, but her foot lost its grip on the slick surface, sending her collapsing onto the concrete stairs. The executioner hoisted his hammer, looming toward her. Every heavy stride he took landed in the oil, but his raw, monstrous power was so great that it didn't seem to hinder his balance at all. I charged out of the apartment, white-knuckling those heavy iron pliers. Sis, get back inside now. As she struggled to scramble back to her feet, the killer was already standing over her. Just as that lethal hammer began its descent, I threw the pliers with every ounce of my desperate strength. It slammed into the killer's wrist, forcing the hammer off course. The steel head bashed into the stair railing, erupting in a deafening, ear-piercing metallic screech. My sister seized the chance to roll aside, crawling frantically back toward our front door. The murderer's gaze pivoted toward me, and for the first time a flicker of emotion appeared. It was the raw, primal instinct of an enraged beast. He charged through the oil slicks directly at us. We dove inside, trying to slam the door shut, but the killer kicked it open with a bone-shattering thud. As he burst inside, he hit the oil at the entrance, his feet finally sliding out from under him. His massive frame lurched, losing all balance. I snatched up a vase and smashed it against his skull. My sister swung the meat cleaver, hacking at his arm. But it was futile. He was simply too powerful. The killer snared my sister's wrist in an iron grip, twisting it with a sickening crack. The cleaver clattered uselessly to the floor. Then he swung the hammer toward her chest with crushing force. My sister collapsed. I lunged forward in a desperate attempt to save her, only to be sent flying by the killer's brutal kick. I slammed into the wall, my ribs erupting in agonizing pain. My vision began to fade into black. The murderer loomed over me, hoisting the heavy sledgehammer one last time. Using my final ounce of strength, I choked out a question. Why the hell did you kill my mother? The killer remained silent, offering no mercy. As the hammer descended and my consciousness dissolved, a single realization burned through my mind. With just my sister and me, we stood zero chance against this monster. I need reinforcements. I need someone in this building with real combat power. That 3rd floor thug, Big Brother Wang, is useless. He only cares about saving his own skin. But on the 5th floor, there lives another tenant, a battle-hardened veteran. Word was he served on the front lines of the border wars. I opened my eyes for the 5th time. The balcony, the flower pot, the counting. This time I'm putting my life in the veteran's hands. I grabbed my sister and bolted out the door, sprinting straight for the 5th floor. Out of breath, my sister gasped, Xiaorui, where are we going? To find the only person who can keep us alive, I stood before the veteran's door and pounded on it like a madman. A raspy, vigilant voice barked from inside. Who's there? I took a deep, shaky breath and shouted a specific name. A name I'd seen in my brother-in-law's decade-old cold case files. Grandpa Zhang, it's Xiaorui from the 2nd floor. Please save us. Save Xiao Jun. Grandpa Zhang, are you there? The room fell deathly silent. Xiao Jun, the name of the veteran's grandson who died years ago. The door was violently yanked open. Old man Zhang Guoqiang stood there, his cloudy eyes piercing right through me. How the hell do you know Xiaojun's name? Gasping for air, I stammered. Grandpa Zhang Xiaojun's nickname was Junhua. When he was 5, he loved your braised pork more than anything. He said he wanted to be a soldier just like you. The old veteran's hands began to tremble uncontrollably. Who in the hell are you, kid? I don't have a second to explain. Heavy, ominous thuds echoed from the floor below. The killer is already coming up, Grandpa Zhang. There's a murderer down there. He's coming to slaughter me and my sister to bury the truth. I know you just want to be left in peace. But Xiaojun is watching you from above right now. He's praying that his grandpa will save us. The old man's eyes instantly welled with tears. He pivoted and vanished back into his apartment. When he re-emerged a moment later, he was clutching a rusted, battle-worn hunting knife. Get inside my place and lock the door tight. My sister tried to protest, but I pulled her away. Be careful, Grandpa Zhang. The veteran didn't offer a response. He simply stood at the top of the landing with his blade, his spine straight as a ramrod once again. The killer emerged around the corner, dragging his hammer. He faltered for a second when he saw the old man. The veteran spoke with a voice like cold steel. Listen, boy. Drop your weapon. I served my country for 20 years. I'd rather not stain these old bones with more blood. The killer offered no reply, simply hoisting the hammer and swinging for the kill. The old man blurred to the side, his hunting knife slicing a jagged line across the killer's arm. Blood sprayed against the concrete walls. The murderer hissed in pain, retreating a step, his gaze morphing into something far more savage. The two clashed in the narrow, claustrophobic hallway. Despite his advanced age, the veteran's combat instincts were razor-sharp. Every strike of his blade was a lethal thrust toward a vital organ. The killer's raw strength was immense, but the cramped space rendered his heavy hammer unwieldy. The veteran effortlessly evaded strike after strike. I watched the entire showdown through the crack in the door, a flicker of real hope finally igniting in my chest. He was a beast. He could actually win, but just as that thought hit, the sound of rapid footsteps echoed from downstairs, accompanied by the harsh sweep of a flashlight beam. A voice barked out, "Police, drop your weapons." It was him, the traitorous patrolman. Hearing the word police, the veteran instinctively turned his head toward the light. That single split-second lapse in concentration was all it took. The killer's sledgehammer slammed into the veteran's shoulder with a sickening crunch. The old soldier let out a muffled groan, stumbling backward as he reeled. The traitorous patrolman ascended the stairs, his firearm leveled. Seeing the blood-soaked killer and the veteran clutching his blade, he didn't hesitate for a heartbeat before squeezing the trigger. The bullet tore through the veteran's back. In utter disbelief, the old man turned his head toward the officer. I'm a veteran. I was protecting the children." The mole let out a chilling sharp sneer. Assault with a deadly weapon and refusing to stand down. "I'm authorized to use lethal force." The veteran collapsed like a felled oak. His hunting knife clattered uselessly onto the concrete. The killer seized the opening, lunging for the 5th-floor door. One violent swing of the hammer shattered the lock entirely. My sister shrieked, shielding me behind her body with desperate courage. The executioner stepped into the room, hoisting his heavy hammer high above his head. My sister squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the final blow. The hammer descended, crushing my sister's skull instantly. She collapsed into an expanding pool of crimson, never to move again. The murderer then turned his predatory focus toward me. I stared at my sister's lifeless body, tears streaming down my face in a relentless torrent. I heard the traitorous cop outside talking to the killer. "Make it quick. This whole thing has spiraled out of control. We need to vanish right now." The killer gave a silent nod of agreement, raising his sledgehammer for the kill. I stared him down with a gaze of pure freezing loathing, memorizing the exact location of the wound on his leg. I memorized the precise angle where the veteran's blade had bit into his arm. I memorized the way his muscles tensed before every overhead swing. The hammer fell. My consciousness spiraled back into the familiar abyss. But this time one specific phrase was etched into my brain. What that dirty cop said, "Make it quick. This whole thing has spiraled out of control. We need to vanish right now." It proved they had a secret signal, a specific way they coordinated their movements. I opened my eyes for the 6th time. The balcony, the flower pot, the counting. This has to be the final round. I can feel it in my bones. I finally gathered enough intel to end this. I know the monster's weaknesses. I know the mole's identity. I know the veteran's lethal potential. But relying solely on the old soldier isn't enough. I need to buy more time. I need to get my brother-in-law back here immediately. In every previous life, Sis only got a busy signal. That's because he was in the middle of a raid, his phone set to silent for the mission. Standard calls will never reach him. But there is one number that will definitely break through. The City Bureau's internal priority line. DBS general priority line. It can bypass everything and patch directly into the emergency channel of the police radios. I dragged my sister into the house. "Sis, forget the locks. Follow me to the 2nd-floor fire escape." My sister froze in confusion. "Why?" I snatched a roll of steel wire from the toolbox, shouting as I ran, "We're going to trap that monster downstairs." We have to stall for time. We reached the heavy doors of the second floor fire exit. I began wrapping the steel wire around the door handle, looping it again and again, binding the door securely to the adjacent fire hydrant. My sister helped me pull the wire taut. Xiao Rui. Is this really going to stop him? I gritted my teeth, yanking the knot tight. Every minute we delay is a minute we survive. Sis, get home and use the landline for the Bureau's internal line. Tell them clearly. You need to be patched into my brother-in-law's squad radio, the emergency channel. My sister looked at me utterly stunned. How do you know all this? There's no time to explain. I can already hear his footsteps downstairs. Go. We sprinted back into our apartment. With trembling fingers, my sister dialed the priority number. It rang 3 times before a voice picked up. A stern male voice answered City Bureau Command Center. State your badge number. My sister panicked. I'm not an officer. I'm the wife of Detective Li Jiangguo. My name is Lin Yu. There's an emergency at our home. A murderer is trying to kill us right now. Please patch me through to my husband's radio. The line went silent for a heartbeat. Do you realize this is a restricted emergency line? Unauthorized use carries severe legal consequences. My sister burst into tears. I know, but my husband isn't answering his cell. The killer is about to smash his way in. I'm begging you. We're at Guangming Road Textile Dorms building, 2-room 202. Please just save us. Perhaps because my sister's cries were so visceral, the operator finally relented. Hold on. I'm patching you through now. After a few agonizing seconds, the static crackle of a radio filled the room, followed by my brother-in-law's frantic voice. Yu, is that you? What's happening? The moment my sister heard his voice, she completely broke down in tears. Jiangguo, a murderer, is hunting us. He's trying to kill me and Xiao Rui. You have to come back. Please hurry back. My brother-in-law's tone instantly shifted to professional intensity. Is the door locked? At that exact moment, a deafening boom erupted from the fire escape. The killer was using his sledgehammer to batter the door. I grabbed the phone and roared, brother-in-law. We're inside the apartment, but the lock won't hold him for long. Hurry, Xiao Rui. Shock reverberated through my brother-in-law's voice. Just hang on. I'm coming right now. 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes tops. The fire exit groaned with the screech of twisting metal. The steel wires I'd tied were beginning to snap. I dropped the receiver. We have to stall him even longer. I bolted into the kitchen, drenching the entryway and the living room floor in every drop of cooking oil. Then I shattered several glass cups, strewing the jagged shards across the oil slick. My sister realized my plan immediately and jumped in to help. We dragged every chair and table in the house, piling them at the door to create a makeshift barricade. My sister unearthed Dad's old toolbox. Inside were wrenches, screwdrivers, and a small sharp hatchet. Bang! The fire exit door finally gave way. The executioner marched into the hallway dragging his hammer. His eyes locked onto our wide-open front door. He charged inside without a moment's hesitation. The instant his foot crossed the threshold, he hit the slick oil and the jagged glass shards. The killer's feet swept out from under him, his massive hulking frame losing all equilibrium as he slammed violently against the floor. The sledgehammer went skidding out of his reach. I snatched the wrench and swung it toward his skull. My sister followed suit, hoisting the small hatchet, but the murderer's reflexes were terrifyingly sharp. He snared my wrist and flung me aside with brute force. I was hurled against the wall like a rag doll. My sister's hatchet bit into the killer's shoulder, but it only managed to tear through his heavy clothing, failing to inflict a fatal wound. The predator landed a savage punch to my sister's face. She collapsed to the ground, blood trickling from her mouth. The killer scrambled up to reclaim his hammer. Right at that critical moment, a chaotic commotion erupted from the 3rd floor. Wang, the local thug, had been jolted awake by the noise. He yanked his door open to peer down into the stairwell. What the hell is going on down there? It's the middle of the night. Let people sleep. The killer looked up at him with a murderous glare. The second Wang saw the blood-soaked monster, his face drained of all color. He tried to slam the door, but it was already too late. The killer's focus had been diverted. Dragging his hammer, he began his ascent toward the 3rd floor. I seized the opening and pulled my sister up. Sis, we need to get to Grandpa Zhang on the 5th floor. We stumbled and scrambled our way up the stairs. Behind us, Wang's agonized screams and sounds of combat echoed. I knew a coward like Wang wouldn't last long, but at least he would buy us a few more precious minutes. I pounded on the veteran's door. Grandpa Zhang, it's me, Xiao Rui. The door swung open. The veteran saw our battered, frantic states and heard the violent upheaval from below. He grasped the situation instantly. He re-emerged with his hunting knife. Get inside. Hide in the back room. I shook my head. Grandpa Zhang, everything is different this time. The police have a mole among them. He's going to shoot you in the back. You have to watch your 6, the veteran froze, looking at me with a gaze full of bewilderment. Little guy, just what kind of person are you? I didn't offer an answer, because the heavy echo of footsteps was already returning from below. This time it wasn't just the killer approaching. The traitor's patrolman was with him. 2 distinct sets of footsteps rang out in the stairwell, one heavy and lumbering, the other light and calculated. The murderer ascended from the third floor, dragging his sledgehammer, drenched from head to toe in fresh gore. Clearly Wong had already been dealt with. And following from below, the mole officer slowly climbed the stairs, flashlight sweeping, with his service pistol gripped firmly in his hand. The veteran stood his ground at the landing, white-knuckling his hunting knife. I pulled my sister close behind him, whispering urgently, "Grandpa Zhang, the man in the uniform is the real threat. He'll wait for you to drop your guard, then shoot." The veteran didn't turn around. He simply gave a sharp, resolute nod. The killer reached the fifth floor landing first. Noticing the lethal hunting knife in the old man's hand, a flicker of predatory caution flashed in his eyes. The two stood in a tense deadlock, neither willing to make the first move. Just then, the traitorous cop finally arrived, aiming both his firearm and his flashlight. He assessed the scene and donned a mask of professional authority. "Nobody move." Old man put down the weapon. "I'm a police officer." The veteran replied coldly, "This man is a murderer. I am protecting these children." The mole stepped closer. "I'm aware, but standing off with a blade is a violation of the law. Drop the knife and let me handle this situation." The veteran wavered. His lifelong instincts as a professional soldier urged him to obey the command of law enforcement. I saw his grip on the hilt begin to loosen. I screamed out, "Grandpa Zhang, don't trust him. He's in league with that monster." The traitor's expression soured instantly. "Shut it, kid." I pointed directly at him. "Your name is Liu Wei. Your badge number is 025143. The dispatch center sent you specifically to silence us. You have a secret signal. That killer just called you on the phone?" The cop's gaze turned instantly icy and murderous. "Brat, you definitely know way too much." He finally dropped the facade, leveling his firearm directly at the veteran's back. Having heard my warning, the old soldier was already braced. The instant the trigger was pulled, he pivoted violently. The bullet grazed the veteran's shoulder before hitting the wall. In a fluid combat roll, the veteran slashed his hunting knife toward the traitor's wrist. The mole let out a gut-wrenching shriek. As his pistol clattered to the floor, the killer seized the opening, swinging his hammer at the veteran. With no time to dodge, the old man used his blade to parry the blow. The sheer impact sent a numbing shock through his hands. The three erupted into a chaotic melee, facing a 2-on-1 assault. The veteran slowly began to lose ground. Clutching his bleeding wrist, the traitorous cop drew his backup piece and aimed it at the old soldier, spotting the primary firearm lying on the floor. I lunged forward without a second thought to snatch it. The gun was heavy, but I gripped it with both hands and aimed at the mole. "Don't move." Everyone froze in their tracks. The traitor sneered, "You think a little brat like you can shoot?" I didn't answer, but my hands were shaking uncontrollably, my index finger already resting firmly on the trigger. My sister tried to rush over to take the gun, but I roared, "Sis, stay back," right at that critical moment. Rapid footsteps thundered from the floor below, accompanied by the static of a police radio. Team 3 has reached the scene. Moving upstairs now, it was my brother-in-law. He had finally arrived with backup. The mole's face turned a ghostly shade of white. He shot a look at the killer. "Retreat now." The murderer turned to vanish through the fire escape. But the veteran used his last ounce of strength to lunge. His hunting knife sank deep into the killer's thigh. The monster let out a primal howl of pain and slammed his hammer into the veteran's chest. Grandpa John collapsed, blood spraying from his mouth. Amidst the chaos, the traitor aimed his gun at me. "You brat! You ruined everything." The shot rang out, but the bullet didn't hit me. My sister had thrown herself in front of me like a shield. The round tore right into her shoulder. She collapsed into my arms, her clothes instantly soaked in blossoming crimson. My vision turned red with pure blinding rage. I hoisted the heavy pistol in my hands. I aimed directly at the traitorous cop and squeezed the trigger. The violent recoil sent me crashing to the floor. The bullet went wide, only grazing the mole's ear. But that single shot terrified him. He didn't dare linger for another second, turning to vanish into the fire escape with the killer. My brother-in-law burst onto the 5th floor with 3 officers. Seeing the blood-slicked floor, and my sister collapsed. His face turned a deathly, ghastly shade of white. You, my sister rasped out weakly, "Jiangguo. I'm okay. Go catch them." They fled into the fire passage. He ordered 2 officers to stay and tend to us, while he and another man lunged into the pursuit. I pulled my sister close, staring at the raw wound on her shoulder. My tears flowed in a relentless torrent. "Sis, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." She gently stroked my hair, silently, "Child, I'm all right. You saved us both." The veteran lay motionless on the floor. His chest caved in from the blow, his breathing dangerously shallow. I crawled over and gripped his hand. "Grandpa Zhang, please don't die. The ambulance is coming." The old soldier looked at me, a faint, tired smile touching his lips. "Little guy, you were so brave. If Xiaojun were still alive today, he'd be just about your age." His fingers slowly went limp, his head lolling to the side as his final breath escaped him. I knelt there, staring at the veteran's body, my heart a chaotic storm of guilt and fury. I had successfully saved my sister this time, but the old hero still lost his life, and the killer and the mole were still at large. As Jiangguo disappeared into the darkness of the passage, I broke free from the remaining officer and bolted after them. The officer tried to restrain me, but I roared, I know exactly where they're heading. I've seen their escape route before. This wasn't a bluff. In my past life during Django's decade-long manhunt, I had pored over every detail of the case files. Beneath this building lies a forgotten derelict air raid shelter that leads directly to the old station 3 kilometers away. I lunged into the fire escape, spotting my brother-in-law hesitating at the stairwell landing. Did they go up or down? Gasping for air, I shouted, down. There's an air raid shelter in the basement. It leads straight to the old train station. Django shot me a quick, sharp look, but didn't waste a second questioning me. He and his men charged toward the basement. I trailed behind them, still white-knuckling the heavy pistol I'd scavenged. The basement was a void of absolute darkness. Django clicked on his tactical light, the beam slicing across the damp, mossy walls. Rapid, frantic footsteps echoed from up ahead. The killer and the mole were making their getaway. Django leveled his weapon and roared, freeze. Keep moving and I'll open fire. The only response was a sharp muzzle flash and a crack. A bullet splintered the concrete wall right next to his head. Django instantly returned fire, the thunderous gunshots deafening in the cramped basement. We pursued them into the air raid shelter, where the darkness became even more suffocating. Only the erratic sweep of flashlights provided any vision. Suddenly, a gut-wrenching scream erupted from the front. One of the officers had stepped into a trap, plunging straight down into a derelict ventilation shaft. Django skidded to a halt, shining his light down the pit. An agonized voice drifted up, my leg is snapped. Keep going, don't let them get away. Gritting his teeth, Django pushed forward. Now it was just him, one remaining officer, and me. The tunnel began to narrow dangerously, forcing us to hunch over as we advanced. Up ahead, the sound of footsteps abruptly vanished. Django signaled a halt, his voice a low hiss. Careful, they're setting an ambush. The words had barely left his lips when a hulking shadow lunged from the blackness. It was the killer swinging his sledgehammer with lethal intent. Django didn't have a clean shot and was forced to parry the blow with his heavy flashlight. The hammer shattered the device instantly, plunging our surroundings into total pitch-black darkness. In the ensuing scuffle, I heard Django's pained grunt and the sickening thuds of a desperate fistfight. I fumbled with my phone and flicked on the light, the weak glow illuminating the nightmare before me. The murderer had Django pinned ruthlessly to the ground. The massive sledgehammer was hoisted high into the air. The other officer lunged forward to intervene, but the traitorous mole tackled him from behind. The two of them became locked in a desperate struggle. I raised the heavy pistol, aiming it straight at the killer, but my hands were trembling with terrifying intensity. I was paralyzed by the fear of accidentally shooting Django. In that moment, the veteran's combat from my past life flashed before me. I remembered exactly where his hunting knife had pierced the killer's thigh. That was the monster's literal Achilles heel, a chronic old injury hidden right behind his right knee. I carefully adjusted my angle, focusing all my energy, and squeezed the trigger, aiming directly for the killer's right leg. The bullet tore straight into the back of his knee. The killer let out a blood-curdling shriek of agony, and his hammer swung wildly off course. Django seized the opening, delivering a bone-shattering punch to his jaw, before flipping the monster over and pinning him to the ground. On the other side, the mole cop unsheathed a hidden blade, and plunged it ruthlessly into the officer's abdomen. The man collapsed to the floor with a harrowing cry. The traitorous patrolman spun around, desperate to escape, and Django raised his firearm to take the shot. But the killer lunged with a final burst of strength, jarring Django's arm. The bullet went wide, striking the ceiling. The mole vanished instantly into the engulfing shadows. Django moved to pursue, but the killer locked onto his leg in a death grip. Django rained blow after blow onto the murderer's face. "Who the hell are you?" he roared. "Why are you slaughtering these people?" The killer spat out a mouthful of thick crimson blood. "I'm just a hired hand, getting paid," he rasped. "The one who truly wants you dead is someone else entirely." Django froze. "Who?" The killer let out a chilling sneer. "You think catching me is the end? This is barely even the prologue. They will never let those two children live. Because what those brats witnessed, wasn't just me committing a murder." Before he could finish his sentence, a single deafening gunshot echoed through the tunnel. The killer's head exploded in a spray of gore, leaving him slumped in an ever-widening pool of blood. Django whipped his head around, spotting the silhouette of the mole standing in the darkness. Wisps of smoke were still curling from the barrel of his gun. "He talked way too much," the traitorous cop muttered coldly. Django scrambled for his weapon, but the mole was far faster. He pulled the trigger. The bullet tore right into my brother-in-law's shoulder. Django collapsed to the floor, his service weapon skidding out of reach. The traitorous patrolman loomed over him, leveling his muzzle at Django's forehead. "Li Django, you really shouldn't have stuck your nose into this." I hoisted my gun, aiming it at the mole. "Let him go." The traitor turned his head, a sinister smirk on his face. "Kid, do you even have any rounds left?" I squeezed the trigger with everything I had. Click. Empty. The mole erupted into a mocking laugh, before slowly pivoting his weapon to point at me. Right at that lethal heartbeat, the wounded officer suddenly lunged from the ground. locking onto the traitor's legs in a death grip. The mole fired a round directly into the officer's back, but the man refused to let go, holding on with grit. Django seized the opening, diving to wrestle the gun away. The two of them became locked in a savage struggle. I charged forward to help, pistol whipping the mole's skull with my empty weapon. Finally, Django delivered a knockout blow to the traitor's jaw, clamping the handcuffs onto his wrists. We collapsed onto the cold floor, utterly spent. Django clutched his bleeding shoulder, staring at the lifeless corpse of the killer. Damn it, he died before he could name the mastermind. I stared into the wide, dead eyes of the murderer, a sudden wave of chilling unease washing over me. The killer had said that we witnessed more than just a murder. What else was there? I strained to remember that rainy nightmare. What exactly did I see from that balcony? Aside from the body being dumped, there was a sudden image flashed through my mind. A sleek black sedan was parked below the building. Someone was sitting inside that car. That person, I feel like I've seen them somewhere before. My thoughts were violently severed by a sharp, piercing vertigo. A suffocating, crushing pain erupted in my chest. The reality around me warped and twisted instantly. I snapped my eyes open, gasping for air. I was back on the balcony. My hands were resting on the cold flower pot. The man below lifted his head. 6543? But this time everything was different. A new terrifying memory was etched into my brain. That mysterious black sedan, and that blurred, shadowy figure lurking inside. I have to get a clear look at his face, because he's the true puppet master behind this nightmare. But now isn't the time for theories. I must ensure everyone makes it out of here alive first. My past failures have taught me one brutal lesson. Hiding or playing it safe is just a shortcut to the grave. I need to execute a flawless plan. I turned to my sister. Sis, listen to me carefully. From this moment on, do exactly as I say. One single mistake could be our end. She was visibly rattled by my sheer intensity. Xiao Rui, what is wrong with you? I took a jagged breath. Sis, we're out of time. Go grab the steel wire immediately. Follow me to the second floor fire exit and bind that door shut. Then get back here and drench the floor in oil and glass shards. The more the better. She opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off. Sis, please just trust me this one last time. If you don't, we are both as good as dead. She stared deep into my eyes, witnessing a level of despair and resolve far beyond my years. She finally gave a sharp nod. Okay. We lunged into action like a well-oiled machine, lashing the fire exit door shut with layers of steel wire. Then we bolted back home, slicking the entryway and stairs with every drop of oil we had, strewing jagged glass fragments across the floor. The trap was set. I grabbed my sister's hand. Now call the Bureau's priority internal line. With trembling fingers, she dialed the number and recited the words I had drilled into her. The operator hesitated for a split second before finally patching the call through. My brother-in-law's voice crackled over the radio. Yu Sis Sob Jiangguo, Guangming Road, Textile Dorms Building, 2 room 202. There's a killer coming for us right now. Please hurry back. His voice spiked with panic. Lock the doors. I'm on my way. I snatched the receiver from her. Brother-in-law, when you bring your team, pay close attention to the first responders. There is a traitor among them. Officer Liu Wei badge number 025143. He's the mole helping the killer silence us. The radio went silent for a heartbeat. Xiao Rui, how do you know this? No time to explain. Brother-in-law, you have to trust me. Also, the killer will flee through the underground shelter. Go straight to the old train station to intercept him. Do not chase him into the tunnels. It's a deadly ambush in there. Django took a sharp breath. Understood. Just keep yourselves alive. I'll be there in 10 minutes, I promise. I set the receiver down, clutching my sister's hand. We're going to the 5th floor to find Grandpa Zhang. But this time we aren't letting him face the monster alone. We sprinted to the top floor, pounding on the veteran's door. He opened it, but before he could even utter a word, I blurted out the truth. The old soldier stared into my eyes for a silent moment, finally giving a sharp nod. Understood. We'll do it your way. We began setting the trap. The veteran unearthed a heavy nylon rope, fashioning a lethal tripwire across the stairwell corner. I told my sister to drench the stairs, from the 5th floor down to the 4th in oil. Grandpa Zhang took his position concealed on the 4th floor, white-knuckling his hunting knife. Once we were ready, I said, Sis, stay here with Grandpa Zhang. I'm going to the 3rd floor to wake up Wang. My sister panicked. No, it's far too dangerous. I shook my head. Wang might be a coward, but he has the gear to help us stall for time. Stay here and wait for the signal. I'll be back in a flash. I charged down to the 3rd floor, hammering on Wang's door with everything I had. Wang opened the damn door. There's a murderer in the building. He's coming up right now. The door creaked open slightly. Wang poked his head out. Kid, what kind of crap are you talking at this hour? I pointed down the stairs. Don't believe me, look. He's already on his way. Wang leaned over the railing to look down, spotting the blood-drenched killer dragging a hammer up the steps. Wang's face drained of color instantly. He tried to slam the door shut, but I gripped the frame like a lifeline. Wang hiding won't save you. He knows witnesses in this building saw the massacre. He's going to go door to door to finish the job. Either you help us stand our ground, or you wait in line to be slaughtered. Wang wavered for a split second, before finally gritting his teeth. Screw it. I'm not going down without a fight. He spun around and grabbed a heavy iron pipe and a bottle of pepper spray. I urged Wang, don't play the hero. Wait for him to slip on the oil and lose his footing. Then douse him with the pepper spray. After that, we bolt. Wang nodded frantically, and damn it all, I'm putting everything on the line today. The killer's heavy footfalls grew deafeningly close. I hunkered down behind Wang's shadow, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The executioner reached the third floor, his eyes narrowing at the iron pipe in Wang's hands, his gaze morphing into something truly demonic. He hoisted the sledgehammer for the lethal strike, and Wang instinctively recoiled in terror. Right at that critical juncture, a massive boom erupted from the second floor fire escape. The killer's focus was instantly diverted, and he pivoted to peer back down the stairs. I seized the opening and roared, Wang now. Wang unleashed a cloud of pepper spray directly into the monster's face. The killer shrieked in agony, clutching his blinded eyes. Wang and I didn't wait around scrambling toward the upper floors. The murderer pursued us blindly, stepping onto the oil slick and losing all traction. He tumbled down the stairs in a chaotic heap. We retreated to the fourth floor, where the old veteran was already poised for combat. The killer scrambled back up, fueled by sheer rage, only to hit the tripwire and faceplant once again. The old soldier lunged from the shadows, driving his hunting knife deep into the killer's thigh. The monster let out a guttural roar of pain, forcing the veteran back with a desperate hammer swing. Just as the tension reached its peak, the wail of police sirens echoed from the street, but a cold chill ran down my spine. I knew the first officer through that door would be the traitor. The sirens wailed closer and closer, as the harsh glare of a flashlight swept up from below. The mole officer Liu Wei swept his flashlight across the hall as he ascended the stairs one calculated step at a time. His service weapon was already gripped firmly in his hand. Listen up. This is the police. Drop your weapons immediately. Hearing the voice of authority, the veteran's instinct was to lower his hunting knife. I grabbed his hand with a death grip, hissing under my breath, Grandpa Zhang, don't fall for it. He's the traitor. The second he reaches the landing, he's going to open fire. The old soldier wavered for a fraction of a second, but ultimately tightened his hold on the blade. The killer spotted the mole officer approaching, a visible flicker of relief washing over his face. Clutching his mangled, bloody thigh, he scrambled upward. The traitorous cop leveled his pistol, pinning the veteran in the center of his flashlight's beam. Old man, this is your final warning. Drop the knife, but the veteran stood like a statue, answering coldly, this man is a savage murderer. I'm merely shielding these innocent children. The mole sneered. That doesn't give you the right to take the law into your own hands. Obstructing an officer? I have full authority to use lethal force. He raised his gun, taking aim at the veteran's chest. I knew the shot was coming in a heartbeat, but this time I was ready for him. Huddled in the pitch-black shadows of the landing, I took one deep stabilizing breath and roared at the top of my lungs, make it quick. This whole thing has spiraled out of control. We need to vanish right now. Those were the exact words I'd heard in my past life. The secret code between the mole and the killer. The patrolman's entire body went rigid with shock. He whipped his head toward the darkness where I was hiding. What did you just say? I kept shouting, are the witnesses all dealt with yet? The higher-ups are getting impatient. The killer froze, staring at the mole officer, with a look of pure, utter confusion. The traitor's face drained of all color. He realized his cover was blown completely. The veteran snapped into reality as well, realizing this cop was indeed a wolf in sheep's clothing. In the exact moment the mole hesitated, rapid footsteps and the crackle of a radio echoed from the floors below. Team 3 has arrived. Moving upstairs now, it was Zhang Guo. The mole's expression fractured into pure terror. He knew if he didn't act now, he'd be finished. He leveled his firearm at the veteran, ready to squeeze the trigger. But the old soldier was already one step ahead, lunging to the side with explosive speed. The bullet shattered against the concrete wall. Wang seized the chance, swinging his iron pipe violently at the traitorous cop's back. The mole stumbled forward, reeling, before spinning around and burying a bullet in Wang's leg. Wang collapsed with a gut-wrenching shriek of pain. The killer used the chaos to hoist his sledgehammer at the veteran. The old soldier raised his hunting knife to parry the blow, and the two became locked in a brutal struggle once more. Zhang Guo and 3 officers burst onto the landing, instantly drawing their weapons at the sight of the carnage. Nobody move. The mole spotted Zhang Guo, and immediately donned his professional mask. Zhang Guo, you're just in time. This old man is armed and dangerous. I'm trying to bring him into custody. Zhang Guo's eyes swept from the blood-soaked killer to the traitorous officer Liu Wei. Then why is your weapon aimed at the old man? The mole stammered. He refused to drop the knife. I was giving him a final warning. I stepped out from the devouring shadows. Don't listen to him. He's the mole. He's working hand in glove with the killer. They even have a secret code. The phrase I just screamed out is their signal to coordinate. Zhang Guo looked at me, his gaze sharp. Xiaorui, are you absolutely sure? I nodded. Check his phone logs. I bet my life. He's been in contact with the murderer tonight. The mole's composure shattered completely. He suddenly pivoted his gun toward me. You brat. You've ruined everything. Zhang Guo's reflexes were lightning fast. Leveling his own gun at Li Wei, dropped the weapon. The mole let out a chilling, desperate laugh. Li Jiangguo, you think capturing me is the end of this whole mess? Is infinitely more complex than you can imagine. The people above want this silenced. Every single one of you is a dead man walking. He squeezed the trigger, the bullet screaming through the air toward me. My sister lunged from the fourth floor, shielding me with her body. The bullet tore into her back. Zhang Guo let out a primal roar, unleashing a shot that shattered the mole's arm. The traitor's pistol clattered to the floor, and he tried to flee while clutching his mangled limb, only to be tackled into the shadows by two officers. The killer saw his accomplice get neutralized, and realized the tide had completely turned. Desperate, he tried to bolt for the fire exit, but the veteran lunged with his remaining strength, burying his hunting knife deep into the killer's thigh. The monster collapsed with a gut-wrenching shriek. Zhang Guo stormed over, kicking the massive sledgehammer far out of reach, and pressed his muzzle against the killer's skull. Don't move. I held my sister in my arms, blood soaking through her clothes in an endless stream. Sis, please don't die. The ambulance is almost here. She gave a frail, ghostly smile. Xiaorui, I'm okay. It just stings a little. Zhang Guo rushed to our side, and the moment he saw the severity of her wound, his eyes instantly brimmed with tears. You just hang on. I'm calling for medics right now. He fumbled with his radio to request immediate backup, before yanking off his jacket to stem the bleeding. Staring at my sister's deathly pale face, my tears flowed in a relentless torrent. This time, I had successfully saved my sister, as well as the veteran and even Wang. The executioner and the mole were finally in custody, but I knew deep down this was far from over. The shadow seated in that black sedan, that person was the true puppet master. Zhang Guo pinned the killer down, demanding coldly who gave the order for these hits. The killer kept his head low, maintaining a grim silence. Zhang Guo buried a fist in his face. Talk. The murderer slowly lifted his head, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. You really think I'm going to spill? He rasped. If I open my mouth, my entire family is as good as dead. Zhang Guo's gaze turned icy. Then prepare for the death penalty. The killer suddenly cackled. The death penalty? You actually think I'm making it out of this building alive? The words had barely left his lips when a sharp gunshot echoed from the floors below. Everyone froze in their tracks. The gunshot echoed violently through the stairwell. The entire group was paralyzed with shock. Zhang Guo's instincts kicked in instantly. He leveled his firearm at the landing. Who's down there? An unfamiliar voice drifted up. Relax, everyone. I'm with the Internal Affairs Inspection Team. Heard there was a major incident and came to provide backup. A middle-aged man in plain clothes ascended the stairs, displaying both his credentials and a sidearm. He appeared to be in his late 40s, with a stern square jaw and piercing eyes. Zhang Guo scrutinized the man's identification, his brow furrowing. Inspection Team. I didn't receive any notification about this. The man offered a thin, cold smile. An emergency situation, no time for formal alerts. The name's Zhang Ming. I spotted a suspect attempting to flee downstairs, so I fired a warning shot to keep them contained. He took a few steps closer, his gaze sweeping over the killer and the mole officer. Looks like you've caught the culprits. Impressive. I stared at this man who appeared out of nowhere, a wave of overwhelming dread surging through my chest. That voice? I swear I've heard it somewhere before. Zhang Guo spoke up. Captain Zhang? These two are suspects in a homicide and a conspiracy. I'm escorting them to headquarters for interrogation. Zhang Ming nodded, standard procedure. However, I need to ask them a few questions first. He strolled over to the murderer and crouched down. Give me your name. The killer lifted his head, and the moment his eyes met Zhang Ming's, a flicker of pure, unadulterated terror crossed his face. He parted his lips as if to scream something, but Zhang Ming suddenly whipped out his gun at point-blank range. The killer's head erupted in a spray of gore, his body collapsing into a widening pool of blood. Everyone stood there in absolute horror. Zhang Guo aimed his weapon at Zhang Ming. What have you done? Zhang Ming replied with a void of emotion. He tried to grab my gun. It was a clear case of self-defense. Zhang Guo roared in fury. Bullshit. He was handcuffed. How could he reach for your gun? Zhang Ming pivoted his muzzle toward Zhang Guo. Li Jiangguo, I strongly suggest you mind your own damn business. The other two officers drew their weapons on Zhang Ming. The atmosphere turned lethal in an instant. I finally remembered. That voice? It was the exact same voice on the other end, when the killer took that phone call that night. I screamed, Zhang Guo, look out! He's the true mastermind behind everything. Zhang Ming pivoted toward me, his gaze turning into a void of lethal ice. Brat, you really do know way too much. He swung around as Zhang Guo tried to fire, but Zhang Ming was lightning fast. A single shot tore straight through Zhang Guo's leg. My brother-in-law collapsed. The other two officers opened fire, but Zhang Ming rolled into cover while returning fire with deadly precision. Another officer took a round and slumped to the floor. The veteran seized the chaos to lunge at Zhang Ming, driving his hunting knife toward the man's back. Jiang Ming's reflexes were supernatural. He ducked the blade and buried a bullet in the veteran's shoulder. The old soldier fell. Jiang Ming loomed over him, prepared to deliver the finishing blow. I snatched up a discarded pistol from the floor. Leveling it at Jiang Ming, "Let Grandpa Jiang go." Jiang Ming froze mid-motion. He turned to face me with a mocking grin. "Hey there, kiddo. You've got some serious guts. But we both know you haven't got it in you to pull the trigger." My hands were trembling violently, but my index finger was locked onto the trigger. Jiang Ming began stalking towards me one step at a time. "Do you even realize what you actually saw?" From that balcony that night, it wasn't just a simple murder you witnessed. You saw my car. You saw my face. I strained to recall every detail of that rainy nightmare. The window of the black sedan rolling down, a face appearing. It was him, the man standing right in front of me. Jiang Ming continued his chilling monologue. That victim was a tainted witness. He held evidence he was never meant to possess. My plan was executed to perfection, but I didn't count on a couple of brats peeking out. Django, clutching his mangled leg, spat through gritted teeth. "Who the hell are you really?" Jiang Ming chuckled. "My identity is irrelevant. What matters is the narrative of tonight's tragedy. A desperate killer resisting arrest, assaulting officers and seizing weapons resulting in mass casualties. And I'll be the hero who put the monster down." He leveled his muzzle right at me. "Kid, don't blame me. Blame your own eyes for seeing too much." I squeezed my eyes shut and pulled the trigger. Bang, the shot went wide, only grazing Jiang Ming's shoulder. His expression fractured into pure malice as he prepared to return fire. In that heartbeat, a silhouette lunged forward, shielding me with their body. It was my sister. She had thrown herself into the line of fire. The bullet tore directly into her chest. She collapsed into my arms, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. "Xiaorui, run!" I clutched her trembling body, my vision completely drowned in tears. Jiang Ming loomed over us, ready to deliver the coup de grace. Suddenly, a thunderous storm of footsteps erupted from below, accompanied by the frantic crackle of police radios. "City Bureau reinforcements have arrived. Everyone, freeze, don't move." Jiang Ming's face paled instantly. He glanced toward the lower floors, then back at us, his eyes darting like a cornered rat. Finally, he spun around and bolted through the fire escape. Jiang Guo struggled to drag himself up, roaring to the remaining officers after him now. "Don't you let that bastard escape!" The officers charged into the pursuit. Jiang Guo crawled to my sister's side. You. "Stay with me. The medics are almost here." She looked up at him, a faint tragic smile on her lips. "Jiang Guo, take care of Xiaorui." Her hand slowly went limp, her head lolling to the side. As her final breath escaped, I held her lifeless body screaming in agony. No, sis, please don't go. I'm begging you, don't die." But my sister would never answer me again. I lifted my head, staring toward the dark fire passage, my eyes burning with a soul-consuming hatred. "Jiang Ming, I will hunt you down and kill you myself." I hauled myself up, snatching the fallen pistol and sprinting toward the fire escape. Jiang Guo roared behind me, "Xiaorui, come back, it's too dangerous." But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I had to be the one to end that monster's life. I'll avenge my sister if it's the last thing I do. I lunged into the fire escape, the echoes of gunshots and heavy pursuit ringing out ahead. I tracked the chaos descending deeper and deeper, until I reached the basement level. Within the suffocating gloom, Jiang Ming's silhouette vanished into the maw of the air raid shelter. I white-knuckled my pistol and stepped into the abyss. This time, only one of us is walking out alive. The shelter was a tomb of absolute darkness. I flicked on my phone's flashlight, the weak beam barely cutting through the dark for a few meters. Heavy footsteps resonated from the front, followed by an officer's desperate roar, "Freeze! Stop or I'll open fire." A sharp crack of a gunshot erupted, immediately followed by a gut-wrenching scream. I accelerated, skidding around the jagged corner, only to find an officer slumped against the cold floor. A bullet had torn through his chest. He was already breathless and gone. I gripped my weapon even tighter and pushed onward. The tunnel began to constrict, becoming dangerously narrow. The air was thick, damp, and bone-chillingly cold, with walls slicked in layers of ancient moss. Suddenly, Jiang Ming's voice drifted through the dark brat. "I can't believe you actually had the nerve to follow me. Turn back now while you still can. This isn't a playground for children." I maintained a lethal silence, stalking toward the source of his voice. Jiang Ming continued, "Don't blame me for your sister's death. Blame her for sticking her nose where it didn't belong. If you kids had just kept your eyes shut that night, you'd both be safe and sound right now." "Don't do this," I yelled. "You murdered my sister. I'm going to make you pay." Jiang Ming let out a mocking chuckle. A 7-year-old child. The words hadn't even finished when a muzzle flash ignited the darkness. The bullet hissed past my ear like a hornet. I dove to the ground in terror, my phone skidding out of my hand. The light died instantly. Absolute darkness swallowed everything. The only sounds left were my own, frantic gasps and the frantic thudding of my heart. Jiang Ming's boots crunched against the floor in the dark, getting closer and closer. "Come out." There's nowhere left to hide. I scrambled blindly toward a narrow side passage. My fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. It was the flashlight dropped by that fallen officer. I snatched it up but kept the light killed, continuing to crawl forward in the oppressive dark. Jiang Ming's footsteps halted exactly where I had just been. He was hunting me like prey. I suppressed my breath, remaining absolutely motionless. Time seemed to grind to a terrifying halt. I could actually hear Jiang Ming's rhythmic breathing. He was barely 5 meters away from my position. Suddenly, Jiang Guo's voice echoed from afar, "Xiao Rui." "Where are you?" Jiang Ming spun instantly, unloading his weapon toward the source of the sound. I seized the opening and clicked the flashlight on. The beam pierced the dark locking onto Jiang Ming's back. Jiang Ming whipped around, leveling his gun at my head. I didn't hesitate, I pulled the trigger. The 2 deafening cracks of gunfire rang out as one. A searing white-hot pain exploded in my shoulder. The bullet had grazed my skin, leaving a bloody trail, but my shot had found its mark, tearing into Jiang Ming's leg. He let out a guttural grunt, dropping heavily onto one knee. I struggled to my feet, keeping my weapon fixed on him. Jiang Ming, still lethal, aimed his gun back at me. We were locked in a deadly standoff. "Brat, do you truly have the stomach to kill me?" Jiang Ming wheezed, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Do you even know what taking a life feels like? It'll be a nightmare that haunts your soul forever." My hands were shaking, but my resolve was iron. "You murdered my sister. I'm the judge and jury for her revenge." Jiang Ming let out a twisted laugh. "Revenge? You think putting me in the ground ends this? I'm backed by people you can't even imagine. They will hunt you to the ends of the earth. I don't give a damn. Today your life ends here." Just as my finger tightened on the trigger, Jiang Guo's desperate voice thundered from behind me. "Xiao Rui, don't fire. Stand down." I glanced back to see Jiang Guo limping toward me, 2 officers trailing close behind him. Jiang Guo reached my side, placing a firm hand on my trembling gun arm. "Xiao Rui, give me the weapon." I shook my head. "Brother-in-law, he murdered my sister. I have to take his life with my own 2 hands." Jiang Guo dropped to one knee, staring directly into my soul. "Xiao Rui, I know the burning hatred you feel. Believe me, I hate him too. But if you pull that trigger now, you'll be no different from that monster." My tears spilled over, but sis is gone. She died protecting me. Jiang Guo's eyes welled up with grief. I know everything you're feeling. But Yu never wanted you to become a killer. She wanted you to live a life worth living." I looked at Jiang Guo and my grip slowly loosened, the pistol clattering onto the cold ground. I collapsed to my knees, wailing in pure agony. Jiang Guo pulled me into a hug, finally breaking down himself. The 2 officers moved in, weapons aimed at Jiang Ming. "Jiang Ming, you are officially under arrest." Jiang Ming let out a cold sneer. "Arrest me? What proof do you actually have?" Jiang Guo wiped his tears away, standing up to tower over Jiang Ming. "Proof? You just gunned down one of my men in cold blood and attempted to execute Xiao Rui. That's all the evidence I need. Furthermore, the Bureau has been fully alerted. Your true identity will be unraveled before dawn." Jiang Ming's composure finally shattered. He suddenly jerked his gun up against his own temple. Jiang Guo roared, "Don't you dare!" But it was too late. Jiang Ming pulled the trigger. Click. It was empty. Jiang Ming froze in disbelief. Jiang Guo kicked the weapon out of his hand with a heavy blow, bearing a devastating punch into the traitor's face. Jiang Ming slumped to the floor as the officers slammed the cuffs on him. Jiang Guo retrieved Jiang Ming's pistol and checked the chamber, saying coldly, "Your luck just ran out. You're completely out of ammo." Jiang Ming sat paralyzed on the ground, a look of total hollow despair washing over his face. Jiang Guo barked at the officers, "Take him back. Maximum security. Don't let him out of your sight." The officers dragged Jiang Ming toward the exit. I watched his silhouette fade into the distance, the hatred in my heart far from extinguished. But Jiang Guo was right. If I had killed him, I would have become the very demon I sought to destroy. Jiang Guo supported me as we limped toward the exit. "Xiao Rui, let's go home." I shook my head. "Brother-in-law, sis is still up there. I need to be with her." His tears began to fall once more. "Okay, we'll stay by her side together." We stepped out of the shelter. The first light of dawn was already breaking. Ambulances and patrol cars swarmed the street below. The neighbors had all been jolted awake, peering down from their windows. Jiang Guo and I returned to the 5th floor. My sister's body had already been draped in a white sheet. I slowly pulled back the shroud, staring at her bloodless, hauntingly still face. My grief surged anew. "Sis, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. If only I had uncovered the mastermind sooner. You wouldn't be gone." Daylight fully arrived. The high-ranking officials from the Bureau reached the scene. A gray-haired veteran officer ascended the stairs, taking in the carnage and the blood-spattered hallway. His expression hardened into a grim mask. He approached my brother-in-law, Jiang Guo. Jiang Guo lifted his head, his eyes hollow and void of life. "Chief Wang, who the hell is Jiang Ming?" Chief Wang let out a heavy, weary sigh. He was the deputy chief of the municipal inspection team. But we've already scrubbed his call logs and tracked his offshore bank accounts. It turns out he's been drowning in dirty money for years, acting as a high-level fixer. He specialized in making loose ends disappear. Jiang Guo spat through gritted teeth, and the man he killed Chief Wang replied, an accountant. He held the ledgers for a massive smuggling syndicate. Zhang Ming took the bribe to silence him forever. He never expected your children to witness the hit. I looked up, my voice trembling. So he tried to slaughter my whole family. Chief Wang locked eyes with me, his gaze heavy with a profound guilt. My boy, I am deeply sorry. We failed to protect you. I shook my head slowly. It wasn't your fault. It was mine. If I hadn't looked out that window that night, my sister would still be alive. Chief Wang knelt down, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. Kid, you are incredibly brave. You saved so many lives tonight. Your sister would have been so proud of you. But I didn't want to be a hero. I only wanted my sister back. The end has finally come. They were taking my sister's body away. I watched as the stretcher vanished down the stairwell, and suddenly the world around me turned pitch black. My entire body collapsed onto the floor. I found myself back on that same balcony. My hands were resting on the cold flower pot. The man below lifted his head. 6543. But this time, I didn't flinch. I just stood there staring down at the executioner below as he finished his count. I also saw Zhang Ming clearly sitting inside that black sedan. He was peering up at our balcony, his gaze sharp and predatory. I took a jagged breath and looked at my sister. Sis, do you believe in rebirth? She froze, looking confused. What? I said, if someone could keep coming back to life, returning to the past to rewrite the future, would you believe it then? She knelt down, placing a gentle hand on my forehead. Xiaorui, are you running a fever? I shook my head. Sis, I'm not sick. I just need to tell you one thing. No matter what happens next, you have to trust me implicitly. Listen to every word I say, okay? She stared into my soul, seeing my deadly serious expression, and after a few heartbeats of hesitation, she finally nodded. Okay, I'll trust you, Xiaorui. I gripped her hand tightly. Sis, this time we aren't just calling the cops or hiding. We're going on the offensive. She was bewildered. What do you mean? I said the killer below was sent by Zhang Ming. Zhang Ming is the deputy chief of the inspection team. He's planning to silence us for good. But he has no idea that I've already unmasked him. She gasped in shock. Xiaorui, how on earth do you know that I didn't answer? I simply commanded Sis call my brother-in-law right now. Tell him Zhang Ming is coming to kill us. Tell him to go straight for Zhang Ming. He must not come home first. With trembling hands, she grabbed the phone and dialed Jiangguo's number. Jiangguo, it's me. His voice crackled through the line. It's so late. What's wrong? My sister locked eyes with me, and I gave her a sharp nod to continue. She inhaled a ragged breath. Jiangguo, the deputy chief of inspection Zhang Ming, is planning to execute us to bury the truth. He's stationed right below our dorms at Guangming Road, lurking inside a black sedan. Mobilize your unit and arrest him immediately. Remember, you must bring heavy backup. The man is extremely dangerous. The line went silent before he gasped. You, what are you saying, Zhang Ming? How could you possibly know I snatched the phone? Brother-in-law, it's me. Xiaorui, listen, you have to trust me. Zhang Ming is right downstairs this very second. He's hired a professional hitman to slaughter us. Bring every officer you have right now, but don't come upstairs instead. Surround that black sedan and take Zhang Ming down. He wavered. Xiaorui, this accusation is incredibly severe. If you've got this wrong, I cut him off. Brother-in-law, just trust me this one time. If I'm mistaken, I'll take full responsibility for the fallout. But if I'm right, you're saving our entire family from a bloodbath and taking down a high-level traitor in the process. He fell silent for a heartbeat, finally gritting out fine. I'll trust your gut. Stay locked inside and don't move. I'm coming in hot. Minutes later, the night was pierced by screaming sirens. 3 squad cars swarmed and boxed in the sedan. Jiangguo and his unit stormed out of their vehicles, leveling their weapons at the black car. Step out of the vehicle. Hands behind your head. The door creaked open. Zhang Ming stepped out, his face a chaotic mask of shock and burning rage. Standing by the car, he forced a cold professional smirk. Li Jiangguo, what is the meaning of this circus? Surrounding me with armed men in the middle of the night, Jiangguo kept his weapon trained on him, his expression a wall of stone. Chief Zhang, we have a credible report linking you to a murder-for-hire plot. You're coming with us for questioning. Zhang Ming's face contorted with shock. Who dared to report me? Where is your evidence? Jiangguo replied, we'll uncover every scrap of evidence in due time. Right now, you're coming to the station for questioning. Zhang Ming let out a cold mocking sneer. Li Jiangguo, do you even realize the gravity of your actions right now? I am the deputy chief of the inspection team. You're just a lowly captain of criminal investigation. What right do you have to lay a finger on me? Jiangguo remained completely unshaken. No one is above the law when a crime has been committed, including you. Zhang Ming scanned the surrounding officers, then glared up at us on the balcony, his eyes narrowing into twin slits of pure malice. He suddenly reached for his firearm in a desperate bid to resist, but Jiangguo was already one step ahead. A single precise shot blasted the gun right out of his hand. The other officers swarmed him instantly, slamming Zhang Ming face first into the pavement. As the cuffs clicked shut, Zhang Ming roared, Li Jiangguo, you're going to regret this for the rest of your life. Do you have any idea how many powerful people I have backing me Touching me is a literal death sentence. Zhang Guo replied icily, then tell them to come find me. Take him away. The unit shoved Zhang Ming into the squad car. Right at that crucial moment, heavy rhythmic footsteps echoed from the stairwell. The killer burst out dragging his massive sledgehammer, only to freeze in horror at the sight of Zhang Ming in custody. Zhang Guo leveled his weapon instantly. Drop the weapon. Hands behind your head now. The executioner glanced at Zhang Ming trapped in the car, then at the wall of police officers surrounding him. Realizing the tide had completely turned, he let the heavy hammer clatter to the ground, sinking to his knees. With his hands locked behind his head, officers lunged forward and shackled him immediately. My sister and I watched the entire scene unfold from the balcony. In utter disbelief, she whispered, Xiao Rui, how did you possibly know all of this was going to happen? I didn't offer an explanation. I just clung to her with everything I had. Sis, this time you aren't going to die. She gently stroked my hair. You silly kid. I was never in any danger of dying, but I knew the truth in a different timeline. She had already been lost to the darkness. Soon after, Zhang Guo led his team up the stairs to our floor. Finding us completely safe and sound, he let out a massive sigh of relief. He approached and crouched down before me. Xiao Rui, tell me, how did you know about Zhang Ming? I looked him dead in the eye and spoke solemnly, brother-in-law. I had an incredibly long, vivid dream. In that dream, I witnessed every single thing that was going to happen. I saw the murderer take a life. I saw Zhang Ming giving the orders to silence the witnesses. I saw my sister die while trying to protect me. And I saw you consumed by the need for vengeance, hunting him for 10 years until you died too. Zhang Guo froze. Xiao Rui Yu, I cut him off. Listen, I know it sounds impossible to believe, but every word is the absolute truth. I have been reborn countless times. Every single time I tried to save my sister, and every single time I failed miserably. It wasn't until this life that I realized passive defense wasn't enough. I had to go on the offensive. I had to strike Zhang Ming down before he could make his move. Zhang Guo stared deep into my eyes, finding a level of exhaustion and world weariness far beyond my years. After heavy silence, he finally whispered, Xiao Rui, regardless of how you came by this knowledge, you saved our entire family tonight. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I shook my head. No, brother-in-law. You're the one who truly saved us. If you hadn't placed your faith in me and brought your men to arrest him, sis, and I would still be dead. Zhang Guo pulled me into a tight embrace. Xiao Rui, never again. I promise I will protect you both with my life. My sister knelt down and hugged us both. Our family is going to stay together forever. Leaning into their warm embrace, my tears began to flow uncontrollably. But this time, they weren't the tears of a hopeless soul. They were tears of relief for a life reclaimed from the brink. In the following days, the Municipal Bureau launched a scorched earth investigation into Zhang Ming. By digging through his secret bank accounts, they uncovered a massive fortune of untraceable dirty money. By scrubbing his encrypted call logs, they confirmed his direct links to the professional Goto killer. And from the depths of his hard drives, they pulled the ironclad evidence needed to dismantle the smuggling syndicate. Zhang Ming was formally indicted and locked behind bars, where the full weight of the law awaited his wretched soul. The bloodthirsty killer finally broke under interrogation, confessing that Zhang Ming paid him to tie up loose ends. The traitorous officer Liu Wei was also taken into custody. He was merely a pawn planted by Zhang Ming in the precinct, specifically to sabotage and delay emergency response times, creating a perfect window for the assassin to slip away. The case was officially closed, and our family was finally out of the crosshairs. But I knew in my gut this was just the prologue. Zhang Ming mentioned he was backed by a hidden power, and that smuggling syndicate wasn't about to let this slide. Sure enough, 1 month later, my brother-in-law received a chilling anonymous call. The voice on the other end was a raspy, gravelly growl. Li Jiangguo, you're a clever man. You managed to cage Zhang Ming, but did you honestly think the game was over? Zhang Guo replied acily, who the hell is this? The caller let out a dark chuckle. My identity is irrelevant. What matters is that your family is currently breathing. If you want to keep it that way, then stop digging before you hit a grave. Zhang Guo roared in fury. Are you actually threatening me? The voice drifted back. It's not a threat. It's a friendly warning. Zhang Ming was just a pawn. By removing him, you've disturbed the entire chessboard. Drop this now or you will live to regret it. The line went dead with a haunting click. Zhang Guo's face hardened into a mask of grim concern. He looked at my sister and then at me, as a heavy decision finally took root in his heart. That very night, Zhang Guo gathered us all together in the living room. Yu Xiaorui, I've made up my mind. We're packing up. We're leaving the city behind for good. My sister froze in shock. But why? Zhang Guo sighed. This conspiracy runs way too deep, and I won't risk your lives. We're moving elsewhere. To start over where they can't find us. I shook my head. Brother-in-law running won't solve anything. They'll eventually track us down no matter where we hide. Zhang Guo looked at me searching for an answer. Then what do you suggest we do? I looked him in the eye. Brother-in-law, you keep digging. Root out the entire smuggling syndicate and burn it down. I have complete faith in you. You're the only one who can pull this off. Zhang Guo wavered. But your safety is my priority? Brother-in-law, we can... Take refuge in the precinct's safe house for now. We'll return once the case is cracked wide open. Jang Guo contemplated the idea, ultimately nodding his head. Fine, we'll do exactly that. Over the grueling months that followed, Jang Guo and his task force fought a relentless battle day and night. By tracing every lead Jiang Ming left behind, they meticulously unearthed the entire smuggling syndicate. It was a colossal criminal empire, with tentacles reaching into the Customs Bureau, the police force, and even high-ranking government officials. Braving immense pressure and threats, Jang Guo apprehended the conspirators one by one. In the end, the entire corrupt organization was torn out by its roots. Dozens of elite criminals were finally brought to justice. Jang Guo was hailed as a hero for his monumental achievement, earning a promotion to deputy chief of the bureau. And at long last, our family could finally live in peace.